And some of the upcoming events, or do you want me to?
You can do that at the end. You just, that would be good. All right. It looks like we're live on YouTube. So we'll get going. Yeah, you can do yeah.
Okay.
And let me see. Am I hearing that? Let me get back to the screen. People still hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Betsy Cunningham, and I'm the chair of the Douglas County Parties Candidates Committee. And so we kind of decided as the executive committee to host a couple of events. This one is a partisan Democratic Party event, candidate forum, and its intent is really to just profile our statewide candidates. And so the order is pretty simple, that each candidate has been given about 10 minutes, and that's a little bit flexible. But what we're going to do is first start out with the state treasurer's race. And Elizabeth Steiner is going to be the first person, the first candidate up. And then the other Democratic Party candidate running in that race is Jeff Goodman. Yeah. And he will then follow. So we're going to leave it up to the candidates to decide whether within that period of time you want to have people ask questions while you're talking, while you raise topics. If you want to do it at the end, the preference is up to you. And we're going to just go through each candidate, maybe a little bit lead time before. We'll probably, based on the schedule, if all goes according to that, we'll be done before the 20 minutes or so before 1 o'clock. So is there any questions from the candidates or folks in the audience?
Can I just clarify, you want 10 minutes total for each of us, and we can talk for a few and then take questions, or we can talk and take questions, talk and take questions? Just, I want to make sure I'm respecting your process.
Yeah, you can run it any way you want, whatever way you feel comfortable. But it's 10 minutes, a little bit long, just kind of make sure we get out of here and done by 1 with all the folks on there. So
I will be
with that, it's up to you. Take it away.
Thanks. So hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Steiner. I have been a state senator for a little over 12 years, representing mostly Northwest Portland, some of downtown Portland, North Portland. But more importantly, serving the whole state as co-chair of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, the Budget Committee. And in fact, some of you may have been there last April when we brought the Ways and Means community hearings to Roseburg. It was great to have a bunch of people show up for that meeting, and it was great to be out there to hear what everybody was thinking about at the time so that we could take people's thoughts into consideration. And that's something I've been doing a lot, which is traveling around the state. So some of you may also know that I'm a family physician by profession. I love being in the legislature, and some people have asked, well, why is it that you want to leave the legislature, especially when you're co-chair of the powerful budget committee, to become treasurer? And what I would say is I became a legislator to help Oregon be the healthiest state in the nation. And to do that by improving social determinants of health, like housing affordability and access, nutritious food supply that people can afford, economic development to help people have family wage jobs, improving our transportation and transit infrastructure, protecting our and so much more. And we've made good progress on that during my tenure in the legislature. I've had the privilege of co-chief sponsoring a bunch of bills to improve access to healthcare and health insurance for people, to reduce teen smoking rates, to offer home visiting to families with new babies, and made substantial investments in parts of our budget that a lot of people depend on, such as our K-12 program, our higher education program. It's never enough, so don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming we've done enough, but I am claiming we've made progress. I am running for treasurer for exactly the same reason I ran for the legislature, to help Oregon be the healthiest state in the nation. The leading cause of poor physical and emotional health is financial insecurity, and the treasurer plays a critical role in improving financial security for people across the state, regardless of your particular position. And I'll just explain briefly how that is and then take your questions. obviously, you know, that one of the treasurer's first and foremost jobs is stewardship of the Oregon Public Employee Retirement Fund. Some of you may be public employees, present or past retirees. Many of us are. I myself have been a state employee through my position on faculty at OHSU since 1999. And so protecting our pension fund is really important, not only to ensure that we give the benefits to the people who have earned them, but also because the better funded our pension fund is, the less current employers have to pay in. And the more money we have to put teachers in the classrooms and troopers on the roads and invest more in our state infrastructure, protect our environment, and so much more. So clearly understanding how the pension fund works, which I think I have a pretty darn good understanding of, having served in this position and worked on PERS issues for many, many years, often having to make some pretty tough choices when balancing the two various important things. I understand the pension system pretty well. There's also responsible for bonding. I've been closely involved with that in my role as co-chair and serving on the Capital Construction Committee for many years now. The treasurer is also responsible for a variety of savings programs. Perhaps most importantly, the two are the 529, or what's commonly called a college savings plan, which can actually be used for almost any kind of post-secondary education. And we need to make sure people understand that. And Oregon Saves, which is the retirement program for people whose employers don't offer an employment-based retirement plan. Building up those plans can make a transformative difference in the lives of so many people. Finally, one of the important that the treasurer has been working on that I look to expand substantially is financial literacy. Most adults were never given any financial literacy training, or more accurately, if they were, it was in high school. And that was a long time ago for a lot of us, right? I graduated from high school well over 40 years ago. So it's really important to partner with the organizations, with banks, with credit unions, with PTAs, with anybody who wants to talk to us, to push out culturally responsive financial literacy education. Last but not least, the one new initiative I'm really excited about implementing during my tenure as treasurer is a baby bond program, where we establish a savings plan for every child in the state born, so that when they turn 18, they have resources to help with their education, to help them buy a car or used car if they want to, so that they can get to and from work or school, to start saving for a home of their own. All the things that we know that can be transformative in improving people's outlook on life and the likelihood of them pursuing education and productive employment. So with that, I'm going to stop. There's a lot more I could tell you because I'm super excited about the job, but I'd love to take your questions.
Does anyone have questions for Elizabeth? Christine?
I do sort of. I was going to try to Google to make sure I had my facts right. Sorry, I'm not as fast as I'd like to. First of all, I want to say thank you for all the really great representation and work you've done. My concern that I'm going to ask you about, and it's not to be adversarial, but I either read in the Oregonian or on OPB, those are probably the two main places I get Oregon news, that there was some question of your involvement with the timber industry and cutting them. Could you explain that to us? Yep. And what your position is? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So this stemmed from a work group. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but most of you know that the Oregon Department of Forestry is responsible for wildfire protection over about 16 million acres in the state. A lot of Douglas County is under that protection, right? And to do that, we contribute money from the state general fund, and we also assess landowners to help pay for it, right? And it makes sense for them to pay for it at some level or another. The problem became that with some legislation that we passed in 2021, the rates went up a lot because they included more funding for mitigation, included funding for building up resources ahead of fire season, all good things, but it means that the cost went up a lot. And so there was an offset for that in the 21-23 biennium. It didn't happen in the 23-25 biennium. I volunteered to run a work group do this. I brought together a bunch of landowners, the people who are playing in, the Nature Conservancy, some of the timber Lone Rock from Roseburg area, Douglas County area, Weyerhaeuser, which everybody goes up in arms about, but they are the largest property owner in the state, aside from the state itself and the federal government, right? They own 1.6 acres in the state of Oregon. Small woodlot owners, rangeland owners, grazing land owners, and try to figure out a strategy to address this. In the course of all of this happening, I held my usual fundraisers that I've been holding throughout my entire tenure as a legislator. And some of the donations that came in were from Oregon Forest Industries Council and from Weyerhaeuser. They were part of a total of about $5,000 out of over 50,000, probably closer to $60,000 in donations that I got from this corporate interests in the fall of 2023. We also came up with a bill. We came up with some ideas. There was a communication guide put out because the communications person and the government relations person for Weyerhaeuser is a skilled communication specialist. We asked her to do some work on that. As a result, her metadata, it was clear in the metadata of the document that she was one of the people who'd worked on the document. There was implication in the media, in fact, statement in the media that she wrote the document, that she came up with the entire plan, and that I was in the pocket of the timber industry. I can assure you that nothing could be further from the truth. Over the course of my entire career, the timber industry has given me somewhere between 5 and 10% of all of my corporate donations. And I have voted against them as often as I've voted for them. I voted for the cat tax, which they hated. I voted for Senate Bill 762, which is that bill I mentioned in 2021. I voted for rates to landowners on various other things. And the bill that we ultimately put forward included the first increase in the harvest tax that we'd seen in 17 years. So while it is absolutely true that Weyerhaeuser would have gotten some of a discount from this, it's because they own so much land. You take 50 cents per acre and drop it down, you multiply it by 1.6 million acres, you're going to get a much larger number than if you take 50 cents per acre and you multiply it by 100 acres, right? It's simple math. So I think there was a lot of misrepresentation. It was unfortunate. The bill itself didn't end up moving for a wide variety of reasons, largely technical in nature. And I still think it's an important problem for us to address. And we're going to try to find some ways, in particular, to offset rates for Eastern Oregon when we come in for emergency board in May, because we're very concerned about having people disassociate from the ODF protection system, which would decimate one of the best fire systems in the district. I hope that adequately addresses your concerns without my sounding defensive, because I'm not defensive about it. I'm just disappointed in how the media portrayed it.
I really appreciate your explaining in detail. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your asking the question, because I'm sure you're not the only one who has it.
I have a question. Jeff Golden introduced a bill about forest fire taxation in this session too. We generally liked that proposal. There's an exemption for over 5,000 acres, which is a bunch of the big boys. As a timberland owner, I get regulated, I get taxed, and over 5,000 acres, they're getting passes. I don't like that. Would you care to comment on Jeff Golden's bill?
I think Jeff Golden's bill was about a referral to the voters to vote on an idea about severance tax. My feeling is what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And we have to be treating people equitably. I don't understand. I will be perfectly honest with you. The combination of my budget responsibilities, the wildfire bill that I myself was running, and two other big bills that I was running meant that I didn't read Senator Golden's bill in enormous detail. If it had that exemption, I would not have supported that, because I don't think that's fair at all. And why we would exempt the large timber companies while taxing small woodlot owners, it makes absolutely no sense to me. So I will freely admit, I'm very honest with people, I did not read in detail because it seemed pretty clear early on that it wasn't going to move. It didn't get a lot of support from many people. And while I absolutely believe that we have to engage the large timber companies and they have to be paying their fair share, and that might have been a way to do it, I think there were some structural problems with that, not least of which, if in fact include that exemption, is that exemption. That's a huge structural problem, and I would never have supported that.
There's one
Elizabeth?
question. There's one
Yeah.
question here in the chat room, which you might have just answered it with what you said, is do the largest corporate and private entities pay their fair share of taxes? And this doesn't seem to be necessarily specific to timber.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can give you a good answer to that question. I can make an argument that they're paying more now than they were after we passed the corporate activities tax in 2019, which has generated billions of dollars for our K-12 and early learning systems, and has been even more successful than we had expected. It's been a little derailed by the pandemic. We're all still, this all took effect, and then we had this pandemic and everything kind of went sideways. But in general, I think corporate taxes are really tough to figure out how to make fair. There's an old expression about taxes. They can either be fair or they can be simple, and it's impossible to make them both. So I would argue that there's some pretty smart corporations out there that are very good at figuring out every loophole in tax code that they can climb through and taking every possible deduction that they can. I'm not particularly supportive of that, to be clear. And I think
Senator, it's time. And what I would like to suggest maybe to the candidates is put your contact information that you'd like people to use so that we can get, if there's more questions, they can contact you, put that into the chat.
Put it in right now. Okay, I'll put it in right now if I can get my Zoom to work. All right, there we go. I will put it in right now. Thank you all so much. I'm actually off to another meet and greet with another Democratic Party, so I'm excited about that. And I really appreciate you all taking the time to meet with me this morning. And I would welcome further questions you have. Feel free to shoot me an email. My email is in the chat. It's super simple. Elizabeth@elizabeth4FOROregon.com. And so you can email me there and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. You may hear initially from my amazing campaign manager, Nick Haskins, but one or another, you will get answers to your questions quickly. So
thank you very much.
And with that, I'm afraid I'm going to have to sign off to get to my other event. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
And
So
we'll have a list of the information they put in the chat. I'll copy it and we'll have a list of it that we'll put on our Facebook page under the event actually, and so people can find it. So the next person up is Jeff Goodman.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation with you this morning. I'm very excited to be here, and more importantly, I am very excited to be your next treasurer, Oregon's next treasurer. It's an office that the entire arc of my life, my education with my Pomona College Economics BA, my MBA from the Wharton School in Finance and Management, my 45 years of investing and budgeting, my work as an analyst, a controller, and on multiple occasions, treasurer for both profit and nonprofit organizations, coupled with 8 years of elected service on the city council, have prepared me to be a terrific treasurer for Oregon. Quite simply, a treasurer for treasurer. What a concept. Now, my values are that I believe, and I still believe, that you cannot love Oregon and not love all Oregonians. And by loving and respecting them, you reach out a hand when they fall, you help heal them when they are sick, and you provide them the opportunity to be self-sufficient, so they will be equal in opportunity in fact, and not just in theory. But of prime importance for me, and it's a key in every decision that I make, is the respect for and the dignity of every individual. I cannot state that more strongly enough. That is the starting point for me. The respect for and the dignity of every individual. These are the values that I'll bring with me to the state treasury, not simply to hold the office, but to actively apply them as state treasurer, providing financial leadership to the state, much as the Oregonian has noted that I'm the best qualified candidate to serve. But my friend the other day said, Jeff, the office of state treasurer is the potentially most effective and least underutilized office in state government. And what he meant by that is we become used to treasurers that only focus on, I call it, steering the ship, keeping investment and cash management programs running smoothly. And that's vitally important, but it's only half the job. And I want to state also very clearly that whether it's Senator Steiner or myself serving in the treasurer position going forward, those ongoing activities will be well handled. That is not the question. The question is, I want to be able to bring Oregon values and my values more actively engaged. For example, here in the Portland area, they're rebuilding the Abernathy Bridge on Interstate 205. When that project was budgeted by the legislature, they built in a 5% contingency factor. Now, nobody in construction for a project of that size, $400 million, builds in a 5% contingency. These questions should have been asked up front. These are the kinds of questions I'm going to be asking over the entire, as I call it, pardon me for going a little wonky, the capital budget of the state. You need someone asking these questions not only up front, but also after the fact when the projects get going. And speaking about up front, let's talk about K through 12 education. In 2021, 2023, the legislature passed what they'd self-described, with pats on the back, the historic budget for K through 12 funding. Now, when they did that, they neglected to say that when you adjusted it for inflation and you adjusted it for the number of students, the actual funding for students went down. That's bringing financial transparency to bear in the position. It's also bringing an integrity approach to give the full picture, whether it's good news or bad. And you have to give both to have that understanding. So in addition, over the last several years, close to 15 years now, I have been focusing on attending the PERS board meetings, attending the investment council meetings, plus my investment background and my budgeting background. Each have different elements. I think it's important that when you're dealing with the best investing minds in the world, not only help inside the treasurer's office, but for people who come to the Oregon Pension Fund, PERS as it's otherwise known, you want to have someone who understands when they go into their jargon talk, as I call it, internal rate of return, efficiency frontier, covered calls, triple witching hour. Now, these can be incredibly boring words, and I'm pleased that no one has fallen asleep by my saying that. But that's the sandbox that I've been playing in for many, many years. I'll be able to go in and be effective from day one. So when you look at the combination of my values, the experience and background that I will bring, and lastly, I'm the first candidate, to the best of my knowledge, who has put together a detailed financial platform for Oregon's financial future. It's a multi-page document dealing with all the different aspects of what I hope to accomplish, dealing with kicker dollars, dealing with property taxes and property tax reform, dealing with transparency. It's on my website. I've sent it to the chair for distribution as appropriate, along with the endorsement from the Oregonian. I'm going to hold it up here so you can see a platform for Oregon's financial future. Please take a look at that, and you can learn more about me and what specifically I want to do. I intend to use the office as a bully pulpit to make things better for Oregon as a whole and for each Oregon resident. Thank you very much for this opportunity this morning, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, there's a couple of questions here. Susan?
Please.
Oh, do you support community banking?
Yes, in general. It's worked very effectively. The Oregon State Bank has worked very effectively in North Dakota for almost 100 years. And although it is not, I want to acknowledge, it is not the top priority for me. I've identified those areas I want to focus on first in my first term, and hopefully going through my second term, with respect to the kicker, property tax reform, and other aspects. But I think absolutely, as the concept of a state bank needs to be examined and looked at very carefully. It almost made it through it did make it through the governor's desk in the last session to just simply form a commission to study it. The governor vetoed it. I would support having that commission looking at it. The argument, one of the key arguments against it, is an argument we've heard before when the Oregon Saves program got put in place, to provide an opportunity for people to save for their own retirement if they weren't a part of a existing plan. And you had a number of financial institutions who said, wait a minute, that's our business. And my response to that was, wait a minute, if it's your business, why haven't you been pursuing it for all these many years? So the state bank is absolutely a concept that should be pursued. It will be certainly on the top of my mind, but I don't want to blow smoke at you and mislead you. It's not going to be my highest priority, but people like Mark Gamba, who have already pushed something like this through, I'm going to be supportive of that effort.
Christine, did you have a question?
Yes, my follow-up question is, I didn't bring my voter guide with me, which I received yesterday in the mail, but I have a recollection that you have made a commitment to not taking fossil fuel money that's printed in there. Is that correct? Is that correction?
That is 100% correct. When it comes to the issue of climate change, I want you to know that it's my voice you're hearing, not somebody else's voice, not somebody else's talking points, that I thought about the issue deeply, carefully, thoughtfully, and you're hearing what I think and not what somebody told me to think.
There's a question in the chat, basically from the same as the other person. Do the largest corporate and private entities pay their fair share of taxes, timber aside?
Timber aside, the answer is at this point, probably not, but it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. It varies depending what kind of industry each company is in. Some industries are structured one way, so it benefit others. They just simply are not able to through whatever existing loopholes are put in place. I would also point out, Oregon has its own tax code, and it has various exemptions that are provided into it by our legislature. If the legislature was concerned about loopholes in the corporate tax code different from what's offered in the federal tax code, there's no reason why we can't delink ourselves on any particular tax break that's in the federal code for the Oregon tax code. And that's something absolutely I'm willing to look at, again, on a case-by-case basis and also an exemption basis.
Jeff, you have about 1 minute left to go. So I think you've got one more question over here.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Probably an underreported story is the plight of the homeless and the campless, where individuals are being pressured to stay away from places in the open where they can sustain sleeping or just human activity. What is your emphasis and what is your commitment to the unvoting population of our city?
I'm going to defer on that question to the Secretary of State candidates. In terms of people who are not voting, that is something outside the realm of the Treasurer's office. As a general statement, I'm a big believer in having as many people vote as possible. It's representative of what our democracy is all about. I'm delighted with vote by mail, and it comes in with a stamped envelope, but that's outside the Treasurer's office completely. It's a Secretary of State function, so I'll defer to our Secretary of State candidates who are here this morning.
I'm sorry, I wasn't really clear, I guess.
Well, so do you have your information in the chat?
Yes, as soon as I'm done talking here, I will get that into the chat box.
Okay, thank you very much.
I apologize if I did not understand the question or answer it correctly. My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity today.
All right.
Connie, there's someone in the waiting room that's trying to get into the meeting at the top.
Oh, Joanne Garden.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you for being here. And if you put this stuff in the chat, we'll make sure that gets on that list. So next up is actually the Secretary of State candidates, two of the Secretary of State candidates. Last month, we heard from Tobias Reed, and I think there's actually either one or two other candidates, and we have two of them today. And first up is James Manning Jr. And I hope you can pull over, or you are pulled over. I saw your note.
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I apologize. I just got through speaking at the Oregon National Guard's their annual convention, and I expressed my gratitude as a former or retiree United States Army veteran. highly decorated. I have an affection for our military. So every opportunity I get to speak with them, I do. So my name is James Manning. Why am I running? I am running for the office of Secretary of State to restore the trust and integrity to that office, to ensure that I defend democracy, protect vote by mail, make sure that all of our 36 elections offices have the proper equipment, necessary security, and training. Also, as a member of the State Land Board, I will commit to never selling any parts of our public lands, waterways, or forest lands. I will never vote to privatize that. That's why I am endorsed, the only one endorsed by the Sierra Club and former Congressman Peter DeFazio. My time I have been in the Oregon State Senate for 8 years. I'm in my second concurrent term as Senate President Pro Tem. Since I have been in the Oregon State Senate for the last 8 years, I have passed over 124 measures that are now law. I would challenge anybody to compare the work that I have put in to benefit all Oregonians. My Senate district is Senate District 7, Lane County. I travel back to Douglas County quite frequently. I have a lot of colleagues in Douglas County. The VA hospital, one that we just got the money that I'd worked on, among others, to get a new retirement home on that property. It will be moving forward. I have a universal health care single payer bill that has moved forward. Oregon will be the first state in the nation to have a universal single payer health care in the next 2 to 5 years. No out of pocket, no copay, vision, dental, hearing, reduction in prescription prices. All of that will be included. We're waiting right now with a new governance board to get Medicare waivers. I bring those issues up because I am not a politician. I'm a public servant. I listen to the people. And what the people have asked me to do, I have responded. And I have gotten a lot of great results. Workers' protections, making sure there are no wage steps. In the Army, as a former United States Army Assistant Inspector General, I conducted inspections and audits nationally and internationally. I'm the only one with that skill set and qualifications. And the work that I've done in that capacity, the Army gave me a lot of accommodations and awards. I attended the United States Army Inspector General University. Only select people can do that. And one of the requirements is that you have to have, at minimum, a security clearance, which I maintained throughout my entire military career. As a leader in the United States Army, under pressure, I have never lost or injured a soldier under my charge. I served overseas as a diplomat to the Australian New Zealand Defence Force. There is no one else that has my experience, my knowledge, or my achievements to be the next Secretary of State. And with that, I'll open up for questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Richard?
What do you think of ranked choice voting?
Thank you for that question. Ranked choice voting, I'm on the Senate Rules Committee. Ranked choice voting that bill came to the Rules Committee. I voted for the bill to move it forward. When the bill hit the Senate floor, I moved it forward. That bill or that measure will be on a ballot in this year in November. One of the questions that I did have about ranked choice. Oregon, I introduced a bill a couple of sessions ago for ballot return postage paid envelopes, which we are using. And the reason for that is that I was thinking about people in rural areas and frontier areas and people with disabilities that don't have access to ballot box to ensure that they can continue to participate in democracy by casting their vote. Ranked choice voting, I do have some concerns about it. I have some concerns about how that would impact minority and communities of color if you don't have name records. But it will go to the voters. And whatever the voters decide as Secretary of State, I will enforce because I was served at the will and pleasure of the people. Thank you for the question.
Anyone else have a question?
I'll just make this really brief. I saw you in Florence at the Florence Area Democratic Club in person. I appreciate what you've told us now, and I appreciate the things you clarified there. One of the things that came up was mental health advocacy for veterans, and I appreciated your response there, and I was wondering if you could share it with this crowd.
Thank you for that question. On my current committee, I chair the Veterans Emergency Management, Federal and World Affairs. I communicate very frequently with the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. I talk frequently with our federal senators, Merkley and Wyden, on this area about veterans issues, mental health. I go out and I speak to veterans groups, and I explain to veterans that are out there some of the things that veterans experience and their families by extension, because they also share a part in that. I encourage veterans to seek help. We have a saying in the Army: be, know, do. Be the example, know the standards, and do the right thing. I myself, as a former police officer, as a former state penitentiary corrections officer, as a 24-year active duty soldier, there are a lot of things that I experienced in my lifetime. My wife passed away a few years ago. It takes bravery to seek help. I encourage all veterans and their family members to seek help. I do. I lead by example.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Senator Manning, for being here. I know you're on your way to somewhere, right?
I have 4 more events. I had events in Eugene last night. Now I'm in Oregon City, and then I got to go to Tualatin, and then I got to go to Portland, and then I got to go back home.
You're not gonna have a voice left.
I know, and I want to apologize. I have a little bit of a condition that I'm receiving treatments for. It'll clear up, but right now it's a little struggle, and I hope that I was able to respond to the questions and that I answered the questions adequately. If not, vote jamesmanning.com. James Manning is running to restore the trust and integrity to the office of Secretary of State, defend democracy, and ensure vote by mail is a permanent fixture of our campaign and how our election processes are carried forth. Thank you.
Please put your contact information, if you would, in the chat so that people can contact you if they'd like to. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, thank you. So next up for the same office of Secretary of State is James Crary. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Jim Crary, and the reason I am running for Secretary of State is because I really dislike the way most political campaigns are run. Too many political campaigns turn off too many voters because politicians run opaque, campaigns where they do their best to hide their true intentions. And oftentimes they don't answer the question that's asked. They instead pivot to some canned talking point that has totally unrelated to the question asked. The other thing is, politicians love to talk in broad platitudes. I'm going to restore integrity. Hey, sounds wonderful, but it means absolutely nothing. If you want to see a lot of broad platitudes, read the candidate voter pamphlet statements of most candidates. Mine, I tried to be very specific. I'm running to engage, empower, and educate voters in a way that's never been done, never been tried before, and it's a very simple idea. What I want to do is add a tab to the Secretary of State's website, and this tab will allow any registered voter to ask questions of any or all of the candidates that the voter can ask for. You know, you go to a candidate forum now, you usually sit in the audience and you have to listen to somebody else ask questions that are oral and oral answers. And if there's multiple candidates, by the time the last candidate has given an oral answer, you don't remember what the first 2 or 3 said. So this new tab, and I call it an electronic candidate form, or an ECF for short. It'll, like I said, it will allow a registered voter to ask questions 24/7. You could be at McDonald's and you think, hey, I have a question. And you take out your smartphone, and before you get your burger, you've asked your question. You didn't have to do anything other than type a few words into your smartphone. Candidates are going to be able to give well thought out and detailed answers. You know, sometimes you get asked a question you might never have heard before, and you have to think about it. And you can't give a quick yes or no, or you could, but it's not very good. And so with this, it allows candidates an opportunity to really explain what they're thinking and what they want to do. The electronic candidate form will allow voters to easily compare and contrast answers from the different candidates. So you could ask all the candidates the same question and then compare and contrast side by side their answers. After the election, all the questions and answers will be preserved for future review, access, and accountability. Somewhere down the line, you could say, hey, you know, 4 years ago, you said this. What happened? Explain. With the ECF, voters are going to make their decision on who to vote for based upon which candidate gives the best answers to the voters' questions. It's going to force candidates to run campaigns that are responsive, interactive, informative, educational, and you know what? Something that voters are going to actually feel empowered by. People that are running for office are, in effect, applying for a job. And just like every other job applicant, candidates should go through an interview process. And that's exactly what the ECF does. It allows voters who are going to be doing the hiring to interview the candidates and make their decision on who to hire. You know, candidates ask us for our votes. They ask us for our money. Certainly, we should be allowed to ask them questions. Hey, what are your plans when you get in there and get elected? It's only fair. The ECF is going to help candidates who would rather spend their time answering questions from voters rather than dialing for dollars. And that's what most candidates do today. With the ECF, candidates that have good ideas for dealing with issues are going to be rewarded. Can you imagine if voters voted for people that had the best answers to the voters' questions? We'd get a lot more elected officials who would actually address the problems that we face. I have a motto, and my motto is question power and those who seek it. I'm happy, before I go, I'm happy to take questions, but you know what? I don't have to put my contact information, because if you read my voter pamphlet statement, I put my phone number in there. And yesterday I got a call from a voter, and the day before I got a text. So if you want to talk to me directly, my phone number is in your voter pamphlet statement. I would love to take any questions. Wow.
Yes, I have a question.
Go for it. Yes.
My name is Roberto Jaramillo. I'm the vice chair of the Douglas County Democratic Party, and I'm currently in Lincoln City in the rain. So my question is that you present a very eloquent presentation of what voters can do to sort of get boned up on who to vote for. But I didn't hear anything about you personally. I didn't hear anything about what your platform is. And I think for people that are trying to understand the different candidates running for Secretary of State, you know, we're not going to have every single answer or every single piece of information before us. But in the very short time that we have you, you know, with us here at Douglas County, can you tell us what your platform is? I mean, what makes you different than the others? We just
Sure.
heard Mr. Manning. So can you help us with that? Thank you.
Roberto, my platform is that I want to put a tab on the Secretary of State's website that is going to allow any registered voter to ask questions of any or all of the candidates. That is my platform. That is what I want to do. You know what? A vote for me is not a vote for me. A vote for me is a vote for yourself, because what you're going to do as a voter is empower yourself for all future elections. You're going to be able to ask questions. And you know what? Candidates do not have to answer a question asked, but everybody is going to be able to see the question, and either there's going to be an answer or not an answer. And then voters are going to make their decision based upon not simple name recognition, not upon who sent out the most flyers, not who's on TV and radio all the time, but rather who gave the best answers to the voters' questions. That's huge. That's totally empowering. I guess I don't quite understand if that's my platform. And no one else will say exactly what they want to do. They all want to talk. They want to, here's the thing. Most candidates don't like to answer a direct question, because they know every time they answer a direct question, they're going to alienate half the voters. And you answer enough questions and you've alienated everybody. But then it becomes incumbent upon the voters to say, you know what, I don't like all these person's questions or answers, but I like 60% of what this candidate said. And there you should vote. I would hope you would vote for that person. You're never going to find someone who agree with 100%. And if you have further questions, like I said, my phone number is in there. If I'm not answering your question, Roberto, I apologize, but give me a call and I'm going to try to answer it. And I'm not going to, I hate dodgeball answers when they won't answer the question asked. And I've seen too many of that. You want my background? I was an attorney. I worked for the municipality of Anchorage in their legal department for 14 years. I started off as a prosecutor. I did insurance defense. Then I worked for BP, the oil and gas company, for 17 years, not in their legal department, but I did contracts. And so I wrote, negotiated, and drafted contracts. And at the end, I did supervisory work. I'm retired. I've been trying to push this idea for 10 years. I was in the League of Women Voters over in Klamath Falls. In 2014, we tried to do a website that would do what I just described. We didn't have enough money. We couldn't get a good website. I have been contacting every Secretary of State since Dennis Richardson and Shamia Fagan, and trying to get in and talk to them about this idea. I've talked to my state senator, Jeff Golden. I've talked to Pam Marsh. You know what? Most incumbents won't like this idea, because they got in under a system where they were able to kind of, work their way in without being directly responsive to vote questions. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to bring in different people. It's going to bring in people that are not afraid to say, hey, this is what I'm about. This is what my plans are. This is how I plan to deal with climate change. This is how I plan to deal with homelessness. Why don't we ask for plans instead of saying, hey, trust me, to make the right decision. You know, I'm all for trusting, but I would also like to have some information. So when I vote, I'm voting informed. I hope I answered.
We have one more question, James, and then
Thank you.
we'll call it there.
I feel like you just kind of walked around that question that Robert asked. What are your, okay, you're pushing to get this questionnaire on the website.
Not a question.
Okay, the ability for everybody to ask any question. The elections are done for a couple of years. You haven't said anything about what your priorities are going to be. How are you going to handle homelessness? How are you going to handle mental health? What is your positions on that?
I'm not going to deal with homelessness and mental health because that's not within the realm of what the Secretary of State does. One thing that I'm going to do, let me tell you, I'm going to travel to every one of our 36 counties. I'm going to meet with every county clerk. I'm going to talk to the county clerks about any issues that they have with voting in their county. I'm going to try to work with them to get the electronic candidate form implemented. I'm going to, when I go to the different counties, I'm going to make it a high priority to go talk to high schoolers and college students in those counties. When I was over in Klamath County and we were trying to do this with the League of Women Voters, we went to 2 high schools over in Klamath County. We talked to a couple of government classes, senior government classes. And I can tell you this was in like 2014. Those young kids, those students were so excited about this. They loved it. You know what? In 2022, I think our turnout in Oregon was about 61% of registered voters. That's abysmal. And that was the highest in the nation. That's abysmal. You know what? If we can get young people to start asking questions, they're going to vote and they will vote informed. I'm going to be working hard to get more people to vote. We don't have a problem with our voting system. I absolutely love the voting by mail, and we don't have a problem with registering people. We have more. It's so easy to register. You know, the motor voter thing has made it everybody can get registered very easily. The problem is getting people to vote, and that's my big emphasis. And this electronic candidate form is the way I hope to achieve that. So again, I hope I answered your question. Maybe not the answer you were expecting or wanted, but that's the way I feel.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Will you put your, you got your information right there. Good, thank you. On to you, Betsy.
Yeah, let me see. Do I have to? Oh, I'm going. All right. So, just to mention that we also have an attorney general's race, statewide race, and Dan Rayfield, who is one of the candidates. There's 2 of them. Actually did respond and could not be here today because he's in the middle of air transit, I believe, and so. The other candidate did not respond, and we do have, I will put at the end of the event, I will put our slate card so you will see all the candidates. We do not make endorsements. That is up to, that's the choice of the voter in the May primary. So I think now we are up to the local district elections, and the way that I actually just selected these was in order of the number of the House district. So that would be Brett Cecil, right? Is Brett there?
Richard, you
Brett's
brought,
not here.
yeah, Richard brought a couple of Brett signs, but I don't think Brett is actually available.
All right. So then next on the agenda is someone who's doing a writing campaign, August Warren.
Hello, everyone. My name is August.
August, I think. How do we do that, Betsy? Should I just have him sit in front of the computer? Yeah, why don't you do that? And talk to everybody. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is August Warren. I am running a write-in campaign for the local Democrat primary for House District 2, hoping to get on the ballot for the general election in November. I am running because I am concerned about the future of our community. I see us facing serious issues in many areas. The pillars of my campaign are going to be confronting homelessness, our sustainability of our forests and our environment, and workers' rights. I'm seeing workers trampled all over. I'm a working person myself. I've worked various blue-collar jobs, from construction to outdoor retail to trail maintenance this past summer, and I now work on a fuels reduction crew for Oregon Conservation Corps, so I spend a lot of time in the woods around here. But first, on housing, I believe we should be emphasizing a housing first policy. The issue is obviously complex and there are many factors perpetuating it, but by far the most effective first step we can take is providing sustainable shelter for all of the members of our community. They are citizens, they are human beings. We have the resources to provide them with shelter. I believe we should be doing more to promote programs to transition them into sustainable living, trying to get them into jobs, into mental health care. But there's a stigma around homelessness, and a lot of people approach it as a problem of, I don't want to see it. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable saying that, but I believe we should be approaching people with empathy and compassion and providing resources to help them get their lives back on track. In terms of environmental sustainability, I'm a young person. I'm 24 years old. I was born in 1999, and I've already seen the health of our environment changing around us in a really frightening way. Our forests are the heart of our community. They're the heart of our economy. They sustain us. And I believe if we save our forests, they will also save us. They're so crucial to every aspect of our life. We cannot impact the health of our forests and assume that it will not have an impact on our community. We're facing threats from increasing wildfire. We're facing threats from invasive species. We're facing damage from years of monocropping. Clear cutting is a massive issue. I forget the exact percentage of old growth that's left in Oregon, but it's a very startlingly low number. And those trees they maintain the health of the soil, they maintain our water cycles, they're completely necessary. So my background is in environmental philosophy. I studied philosophy and environmentalism at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So I believe I have the broad understanding of environmental issues, but I'm also a young person with not a lot of experience in politics. This is my first political campaign. So my main message in every problem I try to approach is bringing together people who are knowledgeable on these issues, local members of the community, and trying to foster an honest conversation and an honest approach of we have to address these issues. We can't ignore them anymore. For myself, for the generations who come after me, I believe we have to address them and change the ways that we've been going about addressing them. On workers' rights, we're seeing monopolization worsen. Every company is owned by about 6 other companies. I've worked many different jobs and talked with many different working people, and I've just watched it get harder and harder to work. As inflation has exploded and wages have stayed more or less the same. They've gone up some, but not nearly in line with if they kept in with inflation. People have had to work 2 and 3 jobs to support families. Just speaking for myself, I don't see it as realistic for me to be able to afford buying land or buying a house or having children anytime soon. So I'm concerned about the state of the economy as wealth extraction increases. I believe we need to take on the extraction industry. There are industries that extract wealth from our land and our forests, and there are industries that extract wealth from their own workers as they look to continue to produce capital. So we need to work to strengthen unions. Unions are a crucial pillar of our community who have been suffering greatly in the last decades, to be honest. And then all of these issues play into each other. So when you have conditions brutal on working people, that leads to people being priced out of the housing market as rents and housing prices go up and up and up. And when you don't do anything to address the housing issue, it's unsurprising that we'll see spikes in homelessness. So all of these issues are connected with each other. And then obviously there are many other issues that I am aware of and passionate on. In particular, healthcare, access to healthcare in rural areas is really concerning. The price of healthcare, the affordability is enough to bankrupt people and put them out of their homes and into the streets. So that's another issue that plays into that. And then education as well. We're seeing attacks on public education. Education shapes the next generation of our citizens, and I believe it's important to have well-informed, well-rounded people, which means there's a lot of responsibility on teachers, and we pay them lower than we pay most other jobs. I believe we're showing the value that we hold for teachers, when in reality they should be, their responsibility is just as large as lawyers or doctors. I believe we should pay teachers much more and put more funding into public education, especially in rural areas, where you don't have 6 private schools in the area and a bunch of different charter schools. Rural communities really rely on the few schools in their area. So I believe we need to provide the resources there to give a proper education. That's kind of a lot, and as a philosophy major, I can sometimes get lost in rambling tangents. But my main goal is to just have conversations with people. I know that I'm young and I don't claim to be an expert in every area, but I want to understand the people that I'm representing. I want to honestly advocate for their best interests. Yeah, I guess I'll open it up for questions there.
Can I just say it real quick? When you get done, will you make sure to put in your information and contact information
Yes.
in the chat? And I'm gonna take just one question before I go over there. And that's, do you see, I love that you've got an environmental background, and do you see any alternative clear cutting? I mean, I know that's a tough question,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, there is a simple answer, and that's yes. The details are much more complicated, especially when it comes to dealing with people who have a lot of power in this area and people who are profiting and want to continue profiting. It has been done before, profiting while logging sustainably. It is completely possible. And I believe fundamentally that logging is the heart and soul of this community. So my concern is us being able to log into the future. The approach that we've taken recently has, if we continue on this track, we will run out of trees to cut very soon. And the monocropping is playing into that, where the new generation of trees are not growing like they should. The soil quality is not there. So we need to take a holistic approach in terms of promoting full, robust environmental health with full ecosystems. You can't just plant trees in rows for 60 years on end and expect the trees to grow the same. So it has been.
That tells me where you're coming from.
Yeah, and again, like I'm very interested in learning more about the details of specific methods of logging, but I know that there are groups of native peoples in Minnesota and the northern woods who log sustainably at a great profit for a long time. So I know it's times are very different, but I believe if we put our effort into it, we can make it happen.
I don't know if there's any questions on the chat, but I'm going to go to Dane and then Christine.
I just had a quick question on like equality and equity in our community.
Yeah.
There's a recent survey from UHA that 7 in 10 community members that identify as BIPOC do not feel comfortable in Douglas County. There's some more data supporting LGBTQ and or homeless. And I know you talked about homeless, but what is your plan on, making our community a better community for all? Because I think those are really important pieces that when people feel uncomfortable living here, they just don't feel welcome.
Absolutely. I am fully in support of, it frustrates me the way that we exclude members of our community for any lifestyle that they live. I believe that we should strive to make everyone feel comfortable and safe in our community, and that involves having conversations with people and listening to them and hearing from their perspective. It's difficult to figure out how to tackle discrimination, or especially in an area like Douglas County where much of the population does look so similar and there is a lack of diversity. I am by no means an expert on any of those issues, but my main focus is to foster conversations with people and to connect the community. We have so much more in common than we have apart, and we can only truly tackle these issues with everybody on board and everybody feeling comfortable and confident as a member of the community and feeling valued as who they are. So I don't have as great of a direct answer to your question, but it will absolutely be a priority of my campaign to foster inclusion and promote acceptance in every aspect of trans rights, gay rights, everything. It saddens me to see the discrimination that people face.
And we've got a question in back.
Okay, so I have a two-part question. First of all, thank you for your platform. Your priorities really ring with me. I've been doing politics since mid-90s, maybe is when I got active around criminal justice. My thing is, I keep getting to the older edge of the spectrum of involved progressive priorities, that sort of thing. How did we get you in? and how do we get more young people engaged? Because it really is their future. And so that would be my question. The other thing is a very practical point, but I think it's important. You're a write-in candidate. Could you please tell us what criteria you have to meet to get to the November election ballot?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll answer that first, and
Okay.
it's somewhat brief. I am running unopposed as a writing candidate, as far as I know, so I will likely not need a ton of signatures. But I have heard that the Republican candidate may try and win the write-in for the Democrat primary.
Yes.
So I'm going to encourage as many signatures as possible, and that will also just build momentum for the campaign. My primary focus is to build a movement that will last beyond me. I want to foster progressivism.
Can you please explain, because I don't think everybody is a wonk like I am, what the Republican getting people to write in entails, because this has happened before. It's really important that we beat those numbers.
Yes, it seems like it should not be allowed to happen, but it is possible for a Republican candidate to get their supporters to write in his name on the Democrat primary, so that his name would appear as both the Republican and the Democrat candidate, so that they could get more votes and even more so not face opposition. And on your first question, I fundamentally believe that, you know, we have to fight for the quality of the world that we're going to live in the future. I'm very motivated to do all I can. I believe it's just a property of a good person is to leave places better than you found them and to strive to support members of your community. I think it's difficult when people my age feel very disengaged from politics, because we've seen the same kind of circus in the national politics, and that's what gets put on TV. So we feel like our vote doesn't really matter when we don't really like either of the candidates. So it's hard to know exactly how to change that, but that's the focus of my campaign, is trying to advocate for those people who feel disenfranchised from politics and feel like it's useless. I don't know exactly how to change that, but all I can do is do everything I can to try and inspire people, because we can make a difference. I'm very confident of that. And with the state of things, any positive change that we do make is going to be very meaningful. So
we're just about done, but I did say you could ask your question, so
Thank you.
go ahead and try to keep it brief. Thank you.
I am infinitely impressed that something stirred you to fight the windmill, to fight all of these quixotic seemingly platonic venture that you are on. But what is it that stirred you originally about your experience with nature that caused you to be a warrior for nature?
Yeah, when I was 18, after I graduated high school, I through hiked the Appalachian Trail. I grew up in Tennessee, so I hiked from Maine all the way south back home to Georgia over 4 months. And I'd say that was kind of the inspiring experience for me starting to understand how important a connection to the natural world is, just for my own personal health and for my understanding of myself as a whole human being. But also how obviously when you spend time in nature, the cycles of nature are what support human life. And we have kind of disassociated ourselves, we've disconnected ourselves from our natural roots. But I saw, especially on the East Coast, it's so much more choked out. There's highways and suburbs growing in every direction. And so some of my favorite natural areas that I spent time in as a kid are now suburbs or are now strip malls. And that was one of the big reasons I came out to Oregon, was because of the vast expanse of forests and wilderness. So it's felt completely like home to me. These forests feel like a place where humans are meant to thrive. And I want to keep it that way. But yeah, I've seen the damage that can be done if we're not aware.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I do have one question.
You have a social media presence yet, or like a website?
I'm working on that. I'm still getting together a Facebook. I have a Facebook, but I have no information on there. But that's just August Warren for House District 2, I believe. And then I have an Instagram, which is just kind of my personal, which is August Warren Hiking. But yeah, I'm working.
Want to give out an email or anything?
Yes, August Warren House District 2, or sorry, HD2 at Gmail is my email, and I'll put all that information in the chat for you guys. Thank you all.
I want to say something here. I'm not in your district, but I really support candidacy. I'm going to commit to writing a letter to the editor personally, not as a representative of the Democratic Party, asking people, if you're running against Cliff Benz, is that?
Virgil Osborne.
Virgil Osborne. Thank you. I'm glad you clarified that. I need to have my facts right when I write this letter, but stating that I saw you, not as a Democrat, that I saw you speak, how inspirational you were, and encourage people to write in your district. And I will get my facts right, just because I think it's important that we get every write-in candidate we can to make sure you make the November ballot.
I appreciate it.
And thanks for coming today.
Yeah.
Right, and just one comment, when you get your primary ballot, it will have no one on H22. There will be a place to write it in, but he's in House District 2, which is primarily the main House district that we have people in. So I think that next up then is Richard Chasm, who needs no introduction.
Yeah, you can sit there. Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. None of you can vote for me. The only person here that can vote for me is Tracy Thompson. Well, it's because of this district. Now, I gave a copy to Edith to pass along and let you guys look at it. A very important point about a write-in. There will be nobody on that ballot. There's a little circle, and you've got to fill in the circle after you write the name, because that's the vote. The name is who you're voting for. Very, very important. If you don't fill in that little circle, you haven't voted.
The name doesn't count.
The name is just who.
If you don't fill in the circle.
You got that, that's your vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me to win this election, I've got to pull about 5,000 to 7,000 Republican voters. So my speech to you today isn't to you guys, because none of you can vote for me. My speech today is a speech that I'll make to the Republicans. Now, when people ask me, why did you vote? Why did you decide to run? This district is one of the reasons why. If you look at it, it divides rural communities in two. And if it happened in one place, okay. But it's happened in 3 places in this district. They go right down the middle of a rural community. Out in Camas Valley, if you're on the north side of the road, you're in the 4th congressional district and the 1st House district represented by Brett Cecil. If you're on the south side of Highway 42, you're in the 2nd congressional district, which goes clear to Idaho, and the 4th House district. And so that rural community is divided right down the middle. Same in Tiller, same down at Williams. It goes almost to Jacksonville, but not quite in. And there's a reason for that. They have created this, the Democrats in Portland drew this boundary, and they have made it very clear. We don't want to hear from rural Oregonians, any of you, either party. You're not welcome, because this, if you look at this boundary, this is the people that stopped Jordan Cove. And these are the people that don't like the clear cutting and don't like the management that we see out there. And as soon as you get away from the Trump-Biden controversy to what do you really think about? It's amazing, the consistency. And we might disagree on just how to approach it, but the issues are identical. And it's about forest fire. It's about economic development. It's about healthcare. And the homeless issue is a big deal in the country, but you don't see little encampments. You go out here and I challenge you, ride around and look at any of these farms and ranches. Every single one of them has got 1 or 2 RVs parked out there where family members are living on the property. And so it's a big issue all over the place. So the question is, what you gonna do about it? The Democrats in Portland have created a plum, the proverbial low-hanging fruit for a Republican to win this. They don't have to do much. I got fog a mirror and have an R after your name and you're in. So after you're in, you go to the state legislature and you're out. You're frozen out. And the more extreme your positions, the more frozen out you are. Ron Morgan told me point blank, the Democrats in Portland know that they have the votes to win any state election that comes up. Whoever wins that nomination for Secretary of State in the Democratic primary, that person will become the Secretary of State. They know that they have the majority in the House Majority Caucus. That's where the power is. That's where the decisions are made. When they call it the order, that's just the window dressing. The priorities, the funding, who gets what, who goes where is decided in that majority caucus. And if you're a Republican, you're just out. So the point is, whether you're, and all the hippies and environmentalists and pot growers in this district are frozen out too. Everybody's frozen out because they don't want to hear from us. That's why you need to elect a Democrat. And the thing is, if you send me to the state legislature, I guarantee you there'll be a primary fight in the next election for the Republican nomination to run against me. If there isn't, there's something bad the matter with the Republicans. I'm confident there will be. So that means I got to get something done or you toss me out in the next election, which is why you have elections. That's why we do this. Produce results or you're out of here. But what that means is the Republicans who really truly don't care what you think, because this is an easy position to win, you're going to have Republicans crawling all over you wanting to find out what you really, really, really want because they want your vote. And the best way to get their attention is to elect a Democrat. The best way to get the attention for rural issues at that majority caucus is to send me, a highly imperfect vessel, to that majority caucus, because they will know 3 things. Number one, first of all, they know who the hell I am. This is my first election, but I've been in elections for decades. I met Wayne Morris. There's not one of them up there that did. I helped John Kitzhaber get elected. I have been involved in this politics in this state my entire adult life. So they know who I am. They will know that a substantial percentage of Republicans voted for me to be there. So that's a message to the Republicans too. And I think both parties need to wake up. not quite the majority of the registered voters in this district are non-affiliated, which is a way of saying, we're not real thrilled with either party. And it gets back to the same thing. It's different corporations jockeying for position, and they don't deliver anything. They don't have to. So the way they have to is when they need your vote. You send me to the legislature and they need your vote. So the other issues, clear cutting is a disgrace. The damage to the watershed is obvious. There's major issues that are come forward in the next session about water resources. This ranked choice voting is like everything. It's got some virtues, it's got some flaws, but I think in the main, it's got a lot of virtues. It will force politicians to moderate and to hunt for ways where we can get along. But anyway, that's my position, and I'm sticking to it.
Wait, I have a question for Richard, and can you put your information in the chat?
I can't. I want to also acknowledge Michael Jones, that well-known scamp, is tuning in. Hi, Michael. Good friend, a soil scientist at the Forest Service, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. What you can do is donate money. And I think it was 1837, they questioned a guy about how much it cost for somebody to become president of the United States. And he said, cash is the mother's milk of politics. It hasn't changed. And I would really appreciate any donations you care to make.
Okay. Any questions for Richard?
As you know, Oregon is at the very beginning of a water crisis. Do you have any ideas on how that might be mitigated or managed?
It's not at the beginning.
I was trying to be generous.
It's been a serious issue for a long time. I served for 24 years on an irrigation district. One of the things that shocked us, because the water comes from the reservoir at Berry Creek, the water is contaminated. It's contaminated with chemicals. And I think the Sierra Club sneaks up there at night and dumps chemicals on, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Who else dumps chemicals on the woods?
All right, with people. The logging industry.
Correct. And you know, you get your question, Zane, is really valid. Why is there discrimination? And it gets back in politics, follow the money. You follow the money and you'll find your answer. Because the timber industry is under siege in this state and in this county, and they know it. They've logged it out. And the public relations is, well, Oregon will never run out of trees. True. But they are running out of volume. And they're cutting trees where they, you know, I can go out in Camas Valley and show you stumps 10 feet thick. Now they're cutting trees 8, 10 inches. They have no volume. And so they want to get into public timber. And so the way they do that is to demonize people. If it wasn't for the homeless and the weirdos and the progressives, we'd have a damn nice community here. So fellow degenerates, we is them. But the public doesn't believe it. And I think that a famous Republican once said, you can fool all the people some of the time. And you can fool some of the people all the people all the time. Well, it's getting to be a bunch of people ain't fooled because it's obvious. And the thing that sets it off is the wildfires. And there's, you know, we met with Forest Bridges to talk about some things, and they want to talk about public timber, but not private. Forest fires don't care which property they burn, who owns it. And the ignorant observer, not an educated, an ignorant observer, a fifth grader from New York City, you take them up in the woods and they can say, this is public land and it didn't burn, and that's private land and it did burn in a ground fire. And it's because of the monoculture. And we need to talk about, if they want to talk about public timber, we need to talk about private timber as well. And not take no for an answer.
So we're about time. Do you want to take one more question or?
Sure.
Okay,
Well, one last thing, we're gonna have a great flagel banquet, September 14th. Dorcas Shachtman is our chair. She's doing a great job. We have secured Jeff Golden, state senator from the Medford area, to be our keynote speaker, and it's going to be a great event, and I hope that you put it on your calendar and bring your checkbook. Or no. Come have fun.
14th,
September 14th.
Saturday.
I do have some donation envelopes here. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll pass these up for you.
Right, the next up is supposed to be House District 9. But he had to work, but we'll put up information about, he sent us a little statement, then we'll put it up with the information of contacting, because he had to work today. So the last person on the agenda is Tracy Thompson, who is running for State Senate District 1. So.
Two. It's very confusing. My district is half of Terry, of Tracy's district.
I want you.
That's right, exactly. They always had me come after Richard, and so I hope I can bring her blood pressure down a little bit. So, first of all, August, I want to really congratulate you. I mean, it has been one of my drives to get younger people engaged. So I usually come to these things, and I always pick up the person who's not collecting Social Security yet. So thank you for that. You know, it's really funny because, by the way, I'm Tracy Thompson. I'm running for State Senate District 2, which goes up through Canyonville, but incorporates most of southern Oregon down through Grants Pass, where I live, out in Cave Junction, Central Point, and then down to the state border. A lot of what it's going to say is going to sound like a repetition of what all the other candidates have said regarding the primary issues that we're facing. And as others have said, there are a lot of platitudes, a lot of cliches, but my background, I'm a vet. I'm a business leader. I was the CEO of a biotech company that did agricultural biotech. And I'm an innovator. I've got 36 patents. So I'm a problem solver by nature. And so when I look at things like homelessness, the question is, we're gonna fix homelessness, but how are we gonna do it? And one of the things that got me to run is the fact that our Senator, Art Robinson, voted down $1.5 million for water infrastructure that would have provided the infrastructure for 2,500 homes. That's how we solve the homelessness problem, is by creating infrastructure and creating more homes. So I was an international businessman and traveled around the world and saw an amazing program in Denmark where they use tiny homes to house their communities. I'm a real firm believer in the tiny homes. You don't need 2,300 square feet, which the developers will tell you is what they need to make any money. Well, this isn't about making money. This is about putting people in shelters. It's about Maslow's basic needs, basic priority needs. So food, clothing, shelter, you know, it's pretty simple. And if we can't do that in what people will say is the greatest country in the world, Houston, we've got a problem. So that's the first thing. You guys talked about gay rights. My position is, it's your voice, it's your choice. You have a right to be whoever you are, love whomever you want. It is your right. And when the right wants to take that away, I always love it when they say they're pro-life, but yet as soon as that child is born, you're on your own, kid.
Yep.
So it's all about, you know, making this message clear and consistent. When Christine Goodwin, I shouldn't attack her, but I will. When she says that she's pro law enforcement, and then signs a letter supporting Greg Abbott's goons down in Texas, watching a woman and her 2 children die, she's not pro law enforcement and she's not pro life. You know, so this nonsense has to stop. And to Richard's point about sending a Democrat up to Salem, yeah, they write us off. But as you know from Richard, if he gets there, they can't just write him off. You know, you can't ignore Richard. That's one thing for sure. And quite honestly, I've done a lot of work in this area. One of my other issues is environment. I'm a tree hugger from the time I could, you know, walk. The other issue I have is healthcare. So my career has been in healthcare, and I strongly support the Healthcare for All Oregon group. I'm also a member of Physicians for National Healthcare Program. So there are ways that we can do this. There are ways that we can pay for this. And I was really happy to hear James talk about that program he's working on. Because apparently a lot of you can't vote for me, what I would encourage you to do is if you have friends in Canyon or South, encourage them to vote for me. So we have to work together, and I really are coordinating our campaigns. And I really believe that this is a race we can win, because the Looney Tunes that we're running against, you know, we just have to appeal to reason. But as Democrats, we try to appeal to reason to these people who are driven by emotion. So we have to appeal to those emotional people at their level, meet people where they are. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I have a podcast, Community Voices, where I will go out and talk to people who are in the community, ask them what are their concerns. And a lot of them will say, well, I have no concerns. Well, then you raise the question of, what about the homelessness issue? What about education? You know, what about our environment? And then you get them talking. And it's really helpful to understand what people think, because as Richard said, a lot of us are very much aligned. And once you get away from these nonsense issues like, you know, pro-choice, Second Amendment rights, and you deal with the local issues, you realize we are all on the same page to a large extent. Where there might be some differences, and an issue that I have some real strong feelings about is we've got to get parents out of the educational system. We need to get these militant parents out of the educational system and let the schools do what the professionals do. Because when you have militant parents that go to a school board and say, I want this book taken out, I want that book taken out, I want that book taken out, I bet dimes of dollars that none of them have even read those books. And so, you know, it's really important that we address education and we make sure that there are standards that the school boards are meeting, and that these militant parents are basically sidelined so that the schools can do their job. And one last point I'll raise, and this is probably, some people will think this is a lunatic fringe, but I've been involved in artificial intelligence my whole career. Back in 1986, when I started, it was nothing. It is a serious existential threat to us. And I think it's one thing that people are not realizing, that it's happening on a scale much faster. So the question I have is, nurses, care workers are all protected. But a lot of these low-paying fast food jobs, the bank tellers, the bookkeepers, those jobs are going away. And you don't have to take my word for it. Goldman Sachs said that by 2028, 300 million jobs will be eliminated by artificial intelligence. So my question to all of you is, how are we preparing for this? Because this is the future for our kids. And it's something that we can't just brush under the carpet, because it's coming, and it's coming faster than we thought. So yes, questions?
I completely agree with you that AI is an existential threat. The European Union has taken steps to curtail it. What do you suggest we do here along those lines?
I actually think we need to get involved in it and embrace it, for the simple reason that if we actually embrace it and can control it by putting up some guardrails around it, that's the best chance we have. Having said that, I'm not so naive to think that there aren't those nefarious actors who will basically ignore the guardrails. So there's not a lot we can do on some level, but we can't put our heads in the sand. We have to take it on full force, straight on. And we have to incorporate it so that we can understand it, because a lot of the AI researchers don't know why it does what it does. And that's the problem. Did I avoid your question enough?
Well, short of actual policy, yeah.
Right.
You did fine. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Citizen-centric politics has been separated, bifurcated. For some reason, it might be the way our political campaigns have been activated. What do you recommend in terms of appealing to one person, from one person, that gives enough reason to either change what they're doing or reevaluate what they're doing?
Well, this is one of the reasons I go out into the community and talk to people and ask them questions, because it's important to understand what their reasons are. And, you know, neuroscience has shown us that people who live in fear have more active amygdalas, you know, basically our lizard brains. So if you understand that that's a person, that the person you're talking to is operating from a position of fear, you have to address that fear and help them understand why, basically assuage their fear and show them alternatives that basically give them some comfort. So, I mean, there's a lot of data on this. And so you basically, again, have to meet people where they are and understand what their drivers are. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Others? Well, thanks for the invitation. I didn't realize I had a chance to speak, but.
No, thank you so much for speaking.
Thank you.
Maybe this is out of order, but I want to note that Jeff Goodman continued to listen to what we had to say. And also, Tracy and I, the things he's really good at, and there's a lot of them, I'm not. The things I'm really good at, he's learning fast, and we really do need to let you go first once in a while, Tracy. But we're running our own campaign, but later in this race, we're gonna be talking about sending a team to Salem. Tracy in the Senate and me in the House. We can get some stuff.
I just want to make one comment about who can vote for you. This is going live on YouTube. Tomorrow it'll also be up on our Facebook. So just because this audience here in the House and in the Zoom may not be able to vote for you because they don't live in your district, this is actually has an outreach to everywhere in the world because it's assisted with AI.
There you go.
Anyway, I think that kind of, finishes up what we're doing. I'm gonna take us off YouTube, and I think that we have time for announcements, and then the meeting is adjourned, although it wasn't ever technically called to order. So this was only supposed to be about the candidates.
There's one
so we're not
question.
having, yeah.
From Charles Lee, can you take that or?
Yeah, well, what is the question? Yeah, what's the question?
I was impressed with August's presentation, but he's a write-in candidate. Does he have a campaign committee? Is he registered with the Secretary of State about campaign contributions? Can he take money? Question.
I will be for the general registered. I'm not registered for the primary campaign. So I believe I can accept under $750 up until the primary, then I'll register, then I'll be able to accept donations. So I believe for now, we're doing a pledge to donate once we get past the primary. And we're gonna have a website up very soon to find out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're done. You're gonna do some announcements, Connie, and I'll take us off YouTube.
Okay, take us off.